reformed thinking.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling, well, a really fascinating and, let's be honest, often misunderstood part of the Old Testament. We're going to be looking at the Song of Songs, or as it's sometimes called, the Song of Solomon.
And it is definitely a challenging one.
It is. So for our guide, we're drawing from excerpts of Thomas R. Schreiner's work, The King in His Beauty. And our mission really is threefold. First, we need to get a handle on the current scholarly view of the book. Then, we want to appreciate its celebration of marital love.
Which is pretty robust and uninhibited.
Absolutely. And then finally, and this is maybe the trickiest part, we need to connect all that to the big picture of the Bible through what's called typology.
And it's a good idea to say right at the start that this book has been a real interpretive minefield for centuries. I mean, because it's so symbolic and so sensuous, people have read it in completely different ways. You might have heard it's all about Christ and the church, or maybe that it's just a bunch of secular love poems.
Right, there's this immediate tension.
There is. So our goal right now is to just clear the air and lay out what the scholarly consensus is today before we get into any of those older applications.
Okay, let's do that. Let's start right there. In part one, unpacking the consensus interpretation of Song of Songs. For a long time, people weren't even sure what kind of book they were reading.
That's the absolute starting point. The historical readings are, well, they're all over the place.
Like what?
Well, Jewish tradition for a long time read it as an allegory for the relationship between Yahweh and Israel.
Okay.
Then Christian tradition picked that up and saw it as an allegory for Christ and the church. But then you also had people who tried to read it like a three-act play.
A play with a love triangle.
Exactly.
Huh?
The classic version was a maiden, a simple shepherd boy she truly loves, and then King Solomon is the powerful figure trying to win her away.
That sounds dramatic.
It is, but it's not really in the text. And then you get even more readings. Some try to tie it to ancient Near Eastern cultic rites, fertility rituals, and that sort of thing. It's just been pulled in a dozen different directions.
So why the big shift now? Why are scholars today mostly rejecting all of those older takes?
The problem, especially with the allegories, is that they're almost completely subjective.
Meaning you can make it say whatever you want it to say?
You can.
Yeah.
If you decide this flower represents this virtue and that animal represents that person, you've basically erased the literal meaning of the poem itself.
It's just decoding it.
You are.
Yeah.
And Schreiner points out that scholars like Garrett have made a very persuasive case that we should set those readings aside. The modern consensus is, thankfully, a lot more straightforward.
Which is?
That this is love poetry. It's a collection of lyrical poems. It's not a single narrative drama, and it's not a secret code book for theology.
That does sound a lot simpler. But if we reject the dramatic reading, the love triangle, how are we sure there are only two characters? The names aren't exactly laid out for us.
That's a fair question. It really just comes down to the evidence in the text itself.
So there's no clear third person.
There just isn't. The poems are consistently a back and forth, a dialogue of love between a young woman and a man who is identified as the king, Solomon. There's no part of the text that clearly introduces a rival shepherd or a sustained conversation with a third party. The focus is laser sharp on those two.
The maiden and the king?
The Shulamite maiden and King Solomon, yes.
So if we know the genre is love poetry and the characters are these two, what about the context? You said it's a royal story. What in the text tells us that?
The setting is definitely not a humble one. We're told right in chapter 1, verse 4, that the young woman is brought into his chambers.
So into the king's private rooms.
Exactly. This isn't a shepherd's hut. We also get references to the king's couch, his table, all the trappings of wealth and royalty. The whole atmosphere is one of, well, courtly romance.
And it seems like this is all building towards a specific event. The source material points to a royal wedding.
Yes, the arrival of the king described in chapter 3 it's a spectacle. He doesn't just show up. He arrives in the wilderness in a magnificent carriage, a palanquin.
And he's not alone.
Not at all. He's escorted by 60 mighty men, a full military guard. This is a display of power and state importance.
So this is more than just a personal affair. It's like a state wedding.
It is, but it's centered on this very personal relationship. The text says it's his wedding day, and it even mentions the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding. So the poems are all about this relationship between the king and this young woman leading up to and including their marriage.
Okay, so establishing that framework, it's love poetry about a royal wedding, is the key to unlocking the rest of the book.
It is. Because once you see that, you can appreciate what the poems are actually about.
Which brings us to the content itself. This is where the book gets so fascinating. It's just complete celebration of physical love. Let's
Right.
get into that in part 2, the celebration of married love and physicality.
Right. And this is really what makes the book so unique and, I think, so necessary in the canon.
Yeah.
The Song of Songs is a powerful, joyful celebration of sexual love, but specifically within marriage.
Yeah, it's a critical distinction.
It is, because it functions as a major corrective to some less than biblical ideas that unfortunately work their way into Christian thought over the years.
You're talking about asceticism, right? This sort of suspicion of the body and the physical world.
I am. Certain strands of thought, often influenced by Greek philosophy, created this dualism where the spiritual was seen as good and the physical, including sex, was seen as base or even evil.
But that's not a Hebrew idea at all.
Not in the slightest.
Mm-mm.
From Genesis onward, the created world, the human body, and the sexual union inside of marriage are all declared to be good. The Song of Songs is maybe the high point of that affirmation. It tells us that this part of life isn't something to be endured, but something to be celebrated with joy.
And the way it celebrates it is with such artistry. It's never crude.
Never. The author's touch is incredibly delicate. There's no clinical or graphic description. Instead, the author paints a picture using imagery that appeals to all the senses. It's meant to be intoxicating.
Can you give us some examples of that? How does the poetry make this love feel so, well, overwhelming?
It draws from the best things in the world. In chapter 1, love is compared to the taste of rich wine. The scent of their love is like a fragrant perfume that fills the room.
So taste, smell.
All the senses. Her beauty is compared to a rare flower, a rose of Sharon or a lily of the valleys. And the joy they find in each other is like the pleasure of eating sweet, delightful fruit. It's a full sensory experience being described.
And it's not just about their personal feelings. The whole natural world seems to get in on it. I'm thinking of the analogy of spring.
The spring analogy in chapter 2 is just brilliant. The lover calls to her, "Arise, my love, for behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. Winter is the cold, lonely time before their union."
And spring is the new beginning.
It's total renewal. Flowers are blooming, birds are singing, the fig trees are putting out fruit. The vibrancy of nature is a direct reflection of the vibrancy of their love. It's a call to come out and enjoy this beautiful new season of life together.
And within that beautiful setting, the king's attention is fixed entirely on her physical beauty. He seems totally captivated.
Utterly dazzled, and the descriptions he gives are so specific. He praises her eyes, which are like doves. Her hair is like a flock of goats cascading down a mountain.
A flock of goats, that's not a comparison you hear much today.
No, it's not. But you have to picture it. The shimmering, dark, flowing movement. It's an image of life and natural beauty. He goes on to praise her mouth, her cheeks, her neck. It's a detailed, appreciative gaze.
And he compares her breasts to two fawns.
Two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies. Again, it's an image of symmetry, delicacy, and life. It's not a cold, static description. It's an honest and celebratory view of the female body from someone who is just overcome with love and desire.
It all builds to that one amazing line in chapter 4.
The climax of his praise, yes. "You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you."
No flaw in you. That is just absolute. There's no room for insecurity or shame in that statement.
It's total affirmation. And Schreiner is quick to point out that this isn't some outlier in the Bible. This kind of delight in the physical union of marriage is right in line with the rest of the wisdom literature.
Where else do we see this so clearly?
Proverbs chapter 5 is the classic example. The father is advising his son, "Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Let her breast satisfy you at all times. Be intoxicated always in her love." The message is consistent across the canon. This is a good gift from God, meant to be enjoyed passionately and exclusively within marriage.
That focus on exclusivity really sets the stage for the next part of the story. Because it's not all celebration. There's a real tension here. So let's move to part 3. Virginity, hesitation, and the restraint of love.
Right, because while the love is celebrated, the book is also very realistic about the transition the maiden is making.
The king wants her completely.
He does. He calls for her to be his bride. He says her beauty has captivated him. But before the marriage is consummated, she is still separate.
And this is where we get that famous metaphor, the garden locked and the fountain sealed.
Yes. In chapter 4, verse 12, it's one of the most powerful images in the book, and it's a clear reference to her virginity. A garden is meant to be enjoyed, a fountain's meant for drinking, but hers are locked up, sealed.
So her virginity is presented as a treasure, something protected.
Exactly. It's not a deficiency. It's a protected, exclusive space that the king longs to enter. He wants to come into his garden and enjoy its fruits. The longing is immense.
But this isn't just a physical transition for her. The book describes a pretty intense psychological journey.
It does. There's a section in chapter 3 where she's searching for her lover in the streets at night. It's often read as a dream sequence describing her fear about losing her virginity.
So she has this dual feeling, longing and fear at the same time.
A deep duality. She longs for the intimacy, for the embrace that will end her aloneness, which is a theme going all the way back to Genesis. But at the same time, giving up her virginity is, well, it's irreversible.
Once that line is crossed, there's no going back.
There is no going back. She knows that once she surrenders herself to him completely, her old life as a single maiden is over forever. And that's a scary thought, even when it's what you long for.
And it seems this all comes to a head on the wedding night described in chapter 5.
Chapter 5, verse 1 is widely seen as the consummation of the marriage. And again, the language is all sensory and symbolic. He says, "I've come to my garden, I have gathered my myrrh, I have eaten my honeycomb, I have drunk my wine."
So it's not a description of the act, but of the result, the enjoyment, the satisfaction.
It's the ecstasy of it. He's finally partaking of the garden's fruits. And his call to his friends, eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love, confirms that this is a moment of shared communal celebration of their union.
But the source material says what comes next is jarring. After this moment of ecstasy, she has a feeling of repulsion. How does that make sense?
It's a moment of incredible psychological realism. Schreiner suggests that she is both thrilled by the act and at the same time almost haunted by the loss of her virginity.
Thrilled and repulsed.
Yes, because she has just undergone a permanent identity-altering change. She's no longer just herself. She's now the king's wife, his lover. A new world has opened up, but the old one is closed forever. It's the vulnerability that comes with becoming one flesh.
But that initial shock wears off. The later chapters show the relationship solidifying.
They do. That anxiety fades, and what replaces it is a deep assurance of his love for her and her love for him. She moves from hesitation to bold declaration. She praises his strength and his beauty.
Which leads to that other famous line, the counterpart to his praise of her.
"I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine." That's in chapter 6. It's a statement of mutual possession, of belonging. The relationship is secure now, and the physical union is reaffirmed as something delightful, like delicious fruit and aged wine.
Okay, before we go any further, we have to talk about that refrain that pops up 3 times in the book. Do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. What is that all about in a book that's so passionate?
That refrain is the book's ethical anchor. It's the great word of caution. Schreiner explains that this warning is there precisely because love, marriage, and sexual union are so powerful and so irreversible.
And it's directed at the other women, the daughters of Jerusalem.
Yes, it's wisdom being passed on. The message is essentially, don't rush this. Don't play with these powerful emotions. Don't awaken this kind of love before the proper time, which the book clearly defines as the context of a secure, covenanted marriage.
So it's a call for patience and preparation.
Total patience, because this isn't just a physical act. It requires a wholehearted surrender of your entire life to another person. It marks the end of your childhood. So the book is warning against rushing into sexual experiences or even marriage before you are truly ready.
There's a related idea later in chapter 8 about the little sister. If she is a wall, they'll build on her, but if she's a door, they'll enclose her.
That's a perfect application of the refrain. If the young woman is a wall, she's strong. She's protecting her virginity. She's exercising restraint. She can be built upon. But if she's a door open, available, maybe a bit reckless, then her family or community needs to step in and enclose her, protect her from her own impulsiveness.
So it's all about waiting for the right time when the covenant is secure.
You can't undo these choices, so you must wait for love to please, for the time to be right.
Which brings us to the very nature of that love. Let's move to part 4. Love's nature. Spiritual, physical, and paradisiacal. The book doesn't just describe love's effects, it defines what it is in almost supernatural terms.
It does. The book builds to this incredible definition in chapter 8, verses 6 and 7. The maiden pleads with him, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, for love is strong as death, jealousy as fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord."
Strong as death, that's intense. It makes love sound unconquerable.
It's meant to. Death is the one thing no human can resist or escape. The poem is saying that true covenantal love has that same kind of inexorable, unstoppable force.
And the very flame of the Lord. Is that suggesting this love is divine?
It's certainly suggesting its origin is in God. This isn't just a fleeting human emotion. It's a passion that reflects something of God's own covenantal passion. And it's a love that can't be destroyed. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. No amount of suffering can extinguish it.
And wealth can't buy it.
Not at all. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. It's priceless.
So this love is deeply spiritual, a permanent bond, like a seal.
It's a spiritual bond that makes a person willing to suffer for the one they love. The seal is an image of ownership, permanence, and security.
But we have to be careful not to swing the pendulum too far and focus only on the spiritual, right? That would be falling back into that same dualism the book fights against.
That's the crucial balance to maintain. Schreiner really makes this point well. The Song of Songs is not just about the physical, but it uses the physical to teach us about the spiritual character of love. Marriage is where you are completely vulnerable, where you surrender yourself totally to another person. And that act of surrender is profoundly spiritual.
And our source material connects that human experience of surrender and being known to the ultimate experience of being known by God.
Exactly. Knowing God is the ultimate redemptive experience. All other redemptive experiences we have in this life, including the deep knowledge and love within a marriage, are real and good. But they are also foreshadowings. They are echoes of that ultimate reality.
Which is why any attempt to make marriage a purely platonic spiritual thing just doesn't work with what the Bible teaches.
It's completely at odds with the biblical witness. The delight and the ecstasy of the physical union are presented here as the very essence of marital love. The wisdom path isn't to deny the body, but to rejoice in the gift of sexuality within the covenant.
So the book stands as a firm rebuke to any mindset that sees sexuality with suspicion or guilt.
A powerful rebuke. It reminds us that God designed this, and it is good. The biblical path is to rejoice in the wife of one's youth, because this love is meant to be fully realized when two become one flesh.
And this passion also has a protective function. The right passion shields you from the wrong passion.
That's the practical wisdom of it. A healthy, satisfying passion within marriage demands fidelity. It acts as a shield against lust. When a husband and wife are captivated by each other, the desire to look elsewhere diminishes.
Paul says something similar in 1 Corinthians.
He does. He tells married couples not to deprive one another, precisely to guard against temptation. Trying to live without this passion, to suppress it, is unwise and, ironically, can open the door to the very sins you're trying to avoid.
So the book really does celebrate a woman's surrender of her virginity within marriage as a good and holy thing, pushing back against any idea that asceticism is a higher calling.
It's a full-throated celebration of the conjugal life as a gift from God, to be cherished and enjoyed.
That clarity on the physical and spiritual allows us to make the final, most important connection. So let's turn to part 5, the canonical connection, a foretaste of glory. How does this very human story fit into the grand story of the Bible?
This is where we see the book's ultimate purpose.
Yeah.
The entire story is framed with language that is meant to remind us of one place in particular, the Garden of Eden.
It's a love story set in paradise.
In paradisiacal terms, yes. Think about it. There's no mention of death until the very end. The man and woman are described as young, beautiful, flawless, untouched by sickness or the effects of the fall.
And the setting is all about new life. Spring, blooming flowers, budding trees.
It's all imagery of ideal, innocent love. Schreiner says it's meant to be like the love of Adam and Eve before sin entered the world. Marital love, at its best, is a hearkening back to paradise. It's a taste of God's original good design for a husband and wife.
Okay, so if it harkens back to Eden, it must also point forward to the new Eden.
Precisely. It's a foretaste of the glory to come. The joys described here are fleeting on earth, but they point to an eternal joy in the new creation.
Now, we have to be really clear here on how we make that connection. We rejected allegory. You said the right way to read this is typologically. What is the difference?
It's a critical distinction. Allegory is subjective. It imposes a secret meaning on the text, saying the lily is this, the mountain is that. Typology is different. It recognizes real historical patterns that God put into the text and into history.
So it's about the big picture, not decoding every little detail.
Right. We don't have to make every verse about Christ. Instead, we see that the story is about a King Solomon, the son of David, and his bride. Solomon, as the great king of peace and wisdom, is a historical type, a foreshadowing of the ultimate king, Jesus Christ.
And the New Testament makes that connection explicit.
It does. The New Testament tells us that Christ has a bride, the church. Ephesians 5 is the key text for that.
Yeah.
So the earthly royal marriage in the Song of Songs points typologically to the ultimate heavenly marriage between Christ to his people.
So the intense, beautiful love story here is a signpost. It's pointing to a greater love story.
It points directly to the marriage supper of the Lamb we read about in Revelation. The physical and emotional delights of human marriage are a real, created good, but they also serve as a sign of the joy and intimacy that will be consummated in the new creation. They are a sign of the gospel.
And this wasn't a new idea, was it? The Old Testament already used marriage as an analogy for God's relationship with Israel.
Yes, but often in a negative way. In Jeremiah or Hosea, Israel's portrayed as an unfaithful wife. The Song of Songs is different. It shows us the ideal.
It shows what the relationship is supposed to look like.
It points forward to a day when the bride of Christ will be perfectly faithful, and the joys of that union will surpass anything we can experience here. It will be an eternal union, and the bride will be presented to her husband without spot or wrinkle, holy and without blemish.
So to sum this all up, Song of Songs is, at its most basic level, love poetry celebrating the goodness of marriage in the human body.
But it's balanced by this serious caution to wait for the proper time.
Right, and it describes this love in Edenic terms as a taste of paradise lost.
And that taste of paradise points us forward. Human marital love, as wonderful as it is fleeting. It points to a relationship with the greater king that will never end. The pleasures between a husband and a wife are the closest analogy we have on earth to the eternal delight of Christ's relationship with the church.
So what's the final thought for us to take away from this? What does this mean for you, the listener, right now?
Well, the book taps into our deepest human longings, doesn't it? The longing to be fully known, fully loved, and to be told there is no flaw in you. By linking that kind of total acceptance and delight to Christ's relationship with the church, the Bible is making an immense promise.
A promise of satisfaction?
Complete satisfaction. It's promising that God's people will one day see the King in his beauty, and that knowing him will be all satisfying. Think about it. The most intoxicating joy, the most complete surrender, the most beautiful love described in this book, all of that is just a shadow of the joy of finally seeing the King face to face.
That is a satisfying thought to end on. Thank you for walking us through this.
My pleasure.
We invite you to join us next time for another deep dive right here.